My wife made me a stay-at-home parent and now shames me for not making money. My wife has an incredible work ethic. Neither of us attended college, but we've both been able to achieve professional success in our careers. My wife has been working since she was 16, and she really identifies with her work accomplishments. She continued working right up until she gave birth, even though financially, it wasn't necessary. We had planned for her to stay home, and my job had great insurance. So the medical expenses after our child was born weren't overwhelming. But after a couple of months, my wife went back to work. She was struggling being home all the time with the baby and wanted a break. I was working from home full time, but my job was very demanding. I had clients to manage and worked from AM to PM every day. While I was technically home, I still needed to focus on my work, so I wasn't very helpful around the house. Instead, I took on dinner prep, laundry, cleaning, and getting up when the baby woke up at night to let my wife sleep. We were both exhausted from the constant lack of sleep, just the way it goes with a newborn. Eventually, when my wife went back to work, we couldn't afford childcare. She essentially told me, "You're home. You're on deck." I went from working 50-hour weeks to working those same hours while taking care of our child. As a result, my job suffered. My relationship with my clients took a hit, and even my marriage started to feel the strain. I was still handling the nighttime shifts since my wife would just sleep through the baby crying. The company I worked for was sold a year later, and I found some freelance work that allowed me to be home with our child during the day. However, I knew I couldn't go back to working full-time from home while caring for the baby. My wife suggested I stay home, so I did. She got a job with health insurance for herself and our child, but that meant I lost my insurance. I was stuck. My wife made it clear that she didn't want to be the stay-at-home parent and wasn't willing to change her work plans. We couldn't afford childcare or a policy for me, and I wasn't allowed to search for work that could help us cover those costs. It's been a year now, and other than occasional seasonal jobs, I've been the stay-at-home parent. My wife constantly throws it in my face when I ask for anything. She tells me, "You don't bring in any money. You don't understand the stress of being the sole provider." It's hurtful. She didn't give me much of a choice, but now she makes me feel terrible for staying home. On top of that, she refuses to combine our finances so I can contribute to a budget. In September, I'm going back to school. I've made all the arrangements to make it work, but my wife has been telling me that it's a terrible idea. My parents are helping with the tuition and providing childcare for 2 days a week. My father is dealing with a degenerative disease and won't be able to care for our child in the future. Going back to school would also help me get health insurance. I've made sure my wife won't have to do anything extra. She just has to watch our daughter for 2 weekdays instead of 1. But she's making me feel incredibly selfish for even considering it. Am I the a-hole? In my opinion, no. You're not the a-hole. I don't think your wife fully understands what it means to be a partner. It's perfectly fine if she doesn't want to be the stay-at-home parent. But if that's the case, you two need to collaborate. She's not doing that, and you're left without health insurance, a steady income, or financial control. She's not willing to compromise. You've become the stay-at-home parent, and you're still not bringing in any money. Yet she won't combine finances so you can contribute. That's just not right. You're in a tough spot, and she's not being fair to you. I'd say this is financial abuse because she put you in this position and refuses to make any compromises to better both of your lives. On top of that, now that she's back at work, she doesn't take care of the baby during the day, and when you do, she's not even willing to handle the night shift like you did when she stayed home and you were working. That really bothers me because it shows that your wife isn't interested in being a team with you. She just wants to do her own thing while you're there to help her out with it. What do you think? Am I wrong here? Let me know in the comments below. And now let's take a look at what the community thinks. Tufim says, "Not the a-hole, but your wife sounds like she is. She doesn't value your labor at all." Dopey responds, "I kind of understand though. I don't really produce anything she can see. I work hard focusing on the kid during the day and then clean up after dinner when the kid goes to bed. My wife usually leaves in the morning when the house is clean, then comes home to a bit of a disaster each evening: arts and crafts, cardboard forts, rice from the rice table after work. I think she just sees a mess. I try to be understanding about it. She's really a clean-as-you-go person. But our toddler lives from one thing to the next really quickly, so we kind of destroy everything. Then I clean it late when I have time. 3 Fluffies says, not the whole. You both have the right to make decisions based on your own needs and the kids' needs. If full-time stay-at-home parenting isn't working for you, your wife has no business treating you like an indentured servant. There was another post today where the husband was trying to force his wife into homeschooling the kids when she didn't want to, and that wasn't okay either. I suggest marriage counseling, so you and your wife can learn that marriage is an equal partnership, regardless of who brings in the most money, and that everyone's mental health needs should be considered and accommodated reasonably. Up response, counseling sounds like a good idea, but she's adamant we can't afford it, and I can't argue with that. The one time we went, she didn't like it much. My jobs have required me to be a clear communicator, but my wife didn't find it easy to relax enough to share personal things with a stranger right away, and then we just didn't go back. Ryan for 20 says, not the whole. Parenting is a 2-person job, and staying at home and working or being a full-time parent is just as stressful and valid. People would be up in arms if it were the other way around and you were the one working full-time, while your wife had no health insurance. Up responds, I guess I didn't really think about it like that. I never really considered my wife's behavior as abusive, but it seems like that's the consensus. I never even thought financial abuse was a thing. I'm not sure what to do right now, but I'm leaning towards making my wife aware of how her behavior is affecting me. Reading your comments has been a bit therapeutic. A lot of this stuff felt like things I knew in my head but was too afraid to acknowledge. If my wife refuses to address these issues with me, I'm really afraid of what that means for my family. Thank you to everyone who has responded. I've been doing some uncomfortable reflecting, and I'm sure I have more to do, but this has been helpful. Well, the community is in agreement that Op is not the whole, and it seems like the comments have helped open Op's eyes to the truth about his relationship and how his wife's actions are not really that of a partner. This original post was from 10 months ago, before Op started school, and the update we're about to read is just from 2 days ago. So there's a significant gap, and Op is going to fill us in now. Let's continue. A lot of people in my previous post brought up financial abuse, a concept I wasn't familiar with. It was incredibly hard to accept that my wife was being manipulative and controlling in that way. I used to think that abuse had to be intentionally malicious, and that being kind, accepting, and loving meant dealing with the bad without judgment when someone treated me poorly. With my wife, I really believed that since I understood where her behavior came from, how she grew up, that I had to just learn to deal with it. It felt like my problem to fix. I went back to school despite my wife's disapproval, and even found a job that helped pay for my tuition. I never expected to love math as much as I do, but here we are, and I'm actually excited about it. I thought getting a job and having my tuition covered might ease her frustration about school, but boy, was I wrong. She's still unsupportive. I just finished my first year of classes yesterday, and all I've heard from her is how little I help around the house, that my job should pay me more, that she can't do everything, and that it will take too long to finish my degree. I'll always love my wife, but I've realized we're not good together. With my therapist's help, I've been learning to set reasonable boundaries and expectations, especially around money. I want to co-parent our daughter, but I'm aware that my wife likely won't split with me amicably, which puts me in a tough position. Overall, my life is heading in a positive direction. I'm grateful for the insight everyone here has provided. I'm sad about my marriage, but since I made the decision to separate, I've felt so much relief. I'm working on not feeling guilty about it. I was raised to believe that divorce meant failure, but I see now that sometimes relationships just don't work out, and holding on when it's over only leads to unhappiness. I'm glad I have the perspective to see that now. I don't want to make it sound like I'm perfect and my wife is the villain. The first few years of our marriage, I was battling undiagnosed bipolar disorder and was a miserable wreck. I'm stable now, medicated, in therapy, and really enjoying life. That was part of the reason I tolerated a lot of negative treatment. I felt like I deserved it. I'm loving being a student, enjoying my job, and spending time with my daughter. Thanks again to everyone who has supported me. Update. Thank you once again for all the love, positivity, and encouragement. It's been incredibly helpful. I've had to make some tough choices and haven't heard much in the way of good job, but I really needed that. A lot of people have expressed concern about potential custody battles. My brother, who's a lawyer, got me in touch with someone who specializes in family law. So I've been preparing for any legal challenges. I'm still hopeful that my wife and I can come to a co-parenting agreement that works for all of us. But I have to cover my bases for our daughter's sake. My wife is not a bad person. She has issues she refuses to address, which has made our marriage difficult for both of us. As someone commented, you have to deal with your own issues before you can help anyone else. My wife is overwhelmed by her issues, and while I understand that, it's not my responsibility to solve them. I've tried, but I can't fix it for her. To the people who said we shouldn't have had a child together, you're probably right. But I'll never regret that my daughter is here. She's the best person ever, hands down. If you or someone you love is struggling with mental health issues, don't wait, get help now. It only gets harder the longer you wait. While my marriage is ending, or at least heading towards divorce, this is still a positive update. Unfortunately, my wife still has unresolved issues, but refuses to face them, and that's where I'm right. This isn't my problem to solve. It's hers to address when she's ready. Additionally, her refusal to support me going to school and all the things she said to me, like how I don't help enough around the house, how my job should pay me more, and how she can't do it all on her own, just isn't the behavior of a proper partner. Partners build each other up, not tear each other down. Of course, a proper partner will give constructive criticism when needed. They won't just tell you what you want to hear, but they also won't undermine you constantly. In my opinion, you made the right decision for you and your daughter. I hope your wife will eventually see that she needs to deal with her issues. In the meantime, I hope you and your wife can come to an agreement about co-parenting that benefits your daughter, who should be your main focus right now. You've handled your issues, and it's now up to her to work on hers when she's ready.